I want to begin by reading the invocation to the Muse, or at least one or two paragraphs of the invocation to the Muse, which appears in the tunnel, actually in this book, which is a narration by a historian whose specialty is Nazi Germany, and he's just finished a magnum opus, Guilt and Innocence in Hitler's Germany. And he is trying to write a preface to this book, and he can't, he's blocked, and he starts to write the pages I've written for him. These pages, which he finds personal and as non-historical as his book pretends to be historical, he hides in the pages, or between the pages, of that manuscript. But in it, he calls on the Muses, and since he needs all the help he can get, he goes on for 70 pages. I will do one page. I'm reading this, of course, because it's the invocation, I suppose, if there were any, to all of my work. O brood, O Muse, upon my mighty subject, like a holy hen upon the nest of night. O ponder the fascism of the heart. Sing of disappointments more repeated than the batter of the seas, of lives embittered by resentment so ubiquitous the ocean's salt seems thinly shaken, of letdowns local as the sofa where I copped my freshman's feel, of failures as frequent as first love, first nights, last stands. Do not warble of arms or adventurous deeds, or shepherds playing on their private fifes, or of civil war or monarchies at swords. Consider, rather, the slightly squinkered clerk, the soul which has become as shabby and soiled in its seat as worn-out underwear, a life lit like a lonely room and run like a laddered stocking. Behold the sagging tit, the drudge-gray, mopped-out, cunt-corked wife, stale as yesterday's soapy water, or study the shiftless kid, seedy before any bloom, thin and mean as a weed in a walk.
This is a completely unrehearsed conversation, and it will be a combination of questions that I've dreamed of asking William Gass since I last saw him several years ago, and questions that I want to ask for people who may not yet know his work. I wanted to begin with that musical structure, since we heard a fugue, and you mentioned the Cartesian Sonata form, and I had no idea of this, the Schoenberg system of notation.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about the music of your work?
Well, I find, since I don't have a structure generally that vaguely even resembles plot or a story or something, there's usually something there. Of course, you can't eliminate it altogether. But what I prefer to work with are themes and symbols and sort of moods and conditions. So I find frequently that a musical structure is much more amenable to the kind of thing I want to do. Of course, it has to be adapted. You can't really do it. And the Schoenberg thing is a far stretch. It's a metaphor. What I wanted to do was to, choosing Schoenberg means freeing the old notes from previous systems. And then the idea of having 12 chapters, about the same length, and in each chapter all 12 of my fundamental motifs that I had chosen. There are a lot of minor ones, but fundamental motifs would be sounded, but in different arrangements, so that a certain aspect or meaning of the text would emerge more at the beginning, and then sink down and be relatively innocuous or weak at another point. All this is of course, superimposed upon a completely different kind of structure, the tunnel itself, and so on. But that's the way I had in mind.
Well, that